Hey folks, this is Ilya from TWRAPS, and today we'll be wrapping our test Model 3 Highland with Color PPF that we've developed in-house. Now, before I start this, let me tell you a little bit about the tools I'll be using. I'll show you the wrap, and I'll go through some basics. Okay, so first off, tools. I have a microfiber, which I'll be using to clean every surface before I apply the film on it. I have a plastic squeegee and a rubber squeegee, and these two we will provide with each kit. Separately, I have H2 that would help me tuck the PPF under the edges. I'll show you later. I have a utility knife. There will be a little trimming, and I'll explain why. A heat gun, nitrile gloves. You don't need these. I prefer to use them, but you generally don't need them. I have soapy solution sprayer. This is basically liquid clear soap mixed with water, about 1:15 ratio. I have clear solution, which would be my tack solution. I have glue gun, which I'll need because I need to remove the badges to install this PPF. I have PPF primer, just in case. And I have this debadging tool, again, for the removal of the badges. Now, out of all these things, as I said, we'll provide these with each kit. You can use a hair dryer instead of a heat gun if you don't have a heat gun, but you have a hair dryer. You can use any spray bottles. For the soapy solution, I recommend a bigger electric one because there will be so much spraying with it. And the knife you do need, and this you will need. We'll probably start adding this to our kits very soon. Now, let me show you what to expect in terms of what you'll receive, what it looks like, what to do with it, and so on. All right, so when you receive your kit, it will come in a box like this. And I recommend having a couple of large tables like these. These are foldable tables from Home Depot, measuring 30 by 92 if I'm not mistaken. Two of them stacked together. So this would really make it easier to keep the PPF clean during the installation, so you can transfer it safely from the table onto the car. And inside is the actual roll of PPF. I'll put this aside. So the PPF is rolled up on this. It comes in 4 separate sheets. We might change things in the future depending on feedback, but at the time of shooting this video, this is 4 separate sheets. And we've sorted them in a specific way that I think the installation is easier to do. So what I'll do is I'll just open it like this. And this will be my first sheet to install. And the rest I'll just put here safely. There you go. So each sheet will be something like this. This is, in all fairness, the smallest one, so the others, they'll actually hang on each side. This one is the hood and 2 front fenders. So yeah, each sheet will be like this with the separate components on it. We have written instructions that you can check if you're, trying to figure out what is what. And one other thing, notice the letters D and P. Those indicate driver side and passenger side. In this case, that's meant for the fenders, although it also coincides with the hood. So that's, quite obvious. Before we begin installing the hood, this will be the first piece because it's pretty simple. We'll need to remove the front patch. So I'll be using the debadging tool, the glue gun, the heat gun, microfiber, and maybe a spray bottle. Let me show you how that's done. So we'll be removing these badges. To do that, you need a debadging tool similar to this, or other string that you can just put in here And the way you approach this is that first you want to heat up the emblem a little bit. And then I'll first remove the upper arch. Just slide the string under it and peel off. And what is left here is glue, like double-sided tape of sorts, which I'll remove separately. Now let's remove these bags. And now it's just clean up. Let's see if I can just rub it off. The answer is no. So I'll use Glue Gun. I'll try warming it up again to see if I can rub off some more right now. Yeah, so warming it up and rubbing off and using Glue Gun, and just repeat this many times until all the adhesive is out. There you go. Before you can install paint protection film on this, because I use Glue Gun, it's essential to clean it really well. I'll clean it with soapy water right now. Before I put the PPF, I will also clean it with alcohol, with IPA, just in case. I want to make sure that all of the Glue Gun that's there is completely removed before I attempt to install PPF on this. Okay, now that the badges are gone, the next thing you want to do is to clean the hood pretty well. I recommend doing a car wash on the day of the install or the day before, just to get the bulk of dirt out, but still we'll be cleaning each panel individually before we install. So I'll use my soapy solution. Then I'll go with a rubber squeegee. This removes dirt. Also, if your car has a lot of dirt, you may want to do a clay bar treatment. There are plenty of videos on YouTube on how to do that. It's not difficult, it's not expensive, but it's a bit time consuming. Examine the surface, make sure that there is nothing left, and now I'll spray again. And I will use a clean microfiber, wipe it. But because the microfiber can leave some lint, I will do the squeegee part again. Now, since this wrap will wrap around the edges, it would look really nice, we also want to clean the edges where it will be wrapping around. So I'll need to pop this open. And then I'll clean the edges with the microfiber. Alright, as the last step in my cleaning process, I'll spray again. And I'll squeegee again. So all you want from this step is to just have a very clean surface, because even small dirt shows under PPF. Something else I should mention, it's recommended that you install PPF in somewhat nice temperatures, like 70 Fahrenheit. You can do it in hotter weather, you'll just need to use more soapy water. And you can do it in cold weather too, but you have to wait a little bit longer for the PPF to dry before you can fold the edges. Alright, I think this is clean. Now I'll spray it, and this is in preparation of actually putting the PPF on top of it, and I'll leave it like that now. Next up, I want to transfer that hood cut out onto the actual hood. So I'll spray it on top like this, just in case there is some dirt on it, because I'm in a garage and dust is falling off. I don't want to put that dirt under it once I lift it up, so I'll wipe it once just to make sure this is clean. Then I'll spray again, and notice I'm using the soapy solution here. You will mostly need the soapy solution throughout the install. And now I have to lift it up. I'll start, for example, here, because this is close to me. And as you lift up, you need to spray the soapy solution. Notice, because this is too large to just pick it up all at once, I'm doing it in segments and just laying the film back down. Okay, it seems that I've sprayed everything. Yeah, it moves when I pull it. And now it's time to transfer this onto the hood. Before I do so, I'll spray the hood one more time just in case I really want the hood to be very wet with soap solution. And now I'll carefully pick this up in the proper orientation, meaning that the driver's side will be in my right hand and the passenger in my left. As I transfer, I like to fold the film like this so that I don't pick up any dust that's in the air and put it on the blue side. Then I'll unfold it here, down. That's a beautiful color. This is matte fantasy grayish green. It's a matte color changing 8mm paint protection film. It's really good stuff. Now let me talk about alignment and what to do next. So I'll start my alignment at this corner here, and I want to align this so that when I fold at the corner, I don't see any more paint, just that much. And I'm looking for the corner to be in the middle of this line, so about here. And I'll just fold a little bit to make sure that I like my position. And if I like it, I'll start squeegeeing. Now, notice, because of the soapy water, the film is not staying. So in this case, I'll use a little bit of clean water. I'll spray here, or the so-called tack solution, which would make the film stay a little bit better. All right. Now, before I squeegee any further though, I'll go do the same alignment on the other side. And now we just need to squeegee all of the water out of the film. Notice how I'm removing some of the large bubbles by hand. I just want the film to be laying as flat as possible, making sure that it's centered, basically that I'll have the same amount of edge holding on all sides. And one thing to know about PPF is this stuff is stretchable. You'll see later, unfortunately, there is a component to this installation where you need to stretch it. I'll show you later, but this thing is stretchable. You move it around, it stretches. Now, the hood of the Model 3 Highland is really, really easy. Make sure to not leave any water under. Take your time with the squeegee. Now, as I'm squeegeeing, I just noticed that the film dropped down a little bit and now has one of the edges exposed. So if that happens to you, nothing to panic about. You can just reopen it like this, respray, position it again, stretch it a little bit if needed. And I'll use clean water to try to make it stick better. Alright, for next step, I'll spray this again, I'll squeegee it again, just in case. I don't want to be missing any bubbles here, any water under the film. Alright, and when you're at this state, the next thing you want to do is to pop that trunk open. Alright, now I want to clean the edges with clean water so that all the soapy stuff would wash away and we can fold them in a few hours. All right, before we call it a day on this piece, now we need to squeegee again, because some of that clean water would have seeped under the film. Make sure that once you pop that trunk open, you adjust the PPF on the edges, because there is a plastic trim here that wants to lift it up, and on the other side there is also that plastic trim plus the wiper. So just adjust it. All right, I personally prefer to keep it like this, and yeah, I think this is done. Let's move on to the front fenders. Next up, I'll do the driver's side front fender. Now the process will be much like the hood. We first have to clean it, and then we'll spray the film and so on and so forth. Be careful around this cutout. You don't want to rip the paper protection film there. All right, the way you position this one is the following. We'll start at the autopilot camera here, and initially let's just lay the film down so that you reduce the risk of dropping to the ground, Senior. Now again, I'll try to remove the bulk of wrinkles and bubbles with just my hands so that the film takes its shape. And notice our cut and plate, this is what you actually cut out of the PPF, is unique. I've developed it myself using our own Model 3, and it's made to be DIY friendly, but it would still give you professional results like if a shop did. And also it doesn't require you to disassemble anything. You don't need to take this off. So what I'm doing is, like, notice that the cutout for the camera here is a little bit smaller than the actual camera. The reason is that we want this to go under. So you want to kind of tuck it under like this. There is plenty of space for that, by the way. There you go. And the next thing you want to do is to align here on the top. So this will wrap around these edges. So again, this part should be positioned in such a way that when you fold it, it doesn't show the car of the car. And make sure that this goes over the edge, because we'll fold it here as well. And when we have that, we'll start squeegeeing. If you get dirt somewhere, like I got some small speck of dirt here, you can just open the film and spray with clean water and just rub it off. And I'll use that clean water now to wash away some of the soap in this area so that the film is more stable in this area. Now notice that if you pull the film down, look here, this will become difficult to handle. So instead, just push up a little bit and the film conforms to this shape. And what I'm doing here is that I'm slowly removing the water under the PPF while trying to maintain its position. Now the next thing I want to check is that it aligns well on the bottom and that we have enough material on either side to fold it. I'm spraying some more clean water here to make the film stick. So initially, I'm just trying to get this part done and then I'll work on the other. And yes, it's a little bit tricky around the camera, but it just takes patience, no rocket science. Okay, at this point, I think I'm ready to spray some clean water in that area, in the hopes that it would wash away some of that soap that's creating these wrinkles and preventing the film to stick. Okay, the majority of the pressure is now gone. We still have some left. What I'll do is that I'll continue with the installation, and what I need is for this to start drying up. So I'll continue with the installation, and I will revisit this area every now and then. I'll show you to just re-squeegee it, and sooner or later it will start sticking. It will be little by little, but that would be an approach that we'll be taking throughout the entire installation. All right, so pull the film a little bit so that this change of shape here aligns the edge a little past the edge, actually, because we want it to wrap around that edge. And then we'll pull here, make sure that it aligns here as well. And I'll pull some more here. So what you want is for the film to clear the edge and then give it an additional millimeter, so that once it dries up, we can kind of tuck it in. I'll spray some clean water. We just want this to stick better. And just to manage expectations here, to know what it's normal to have these decalled fingers. This is completely normal during the installation. This is the result of the film being wet and not sticking just yet, and pressure. So this is normal, and you'll see how I handle this throughout the installation. Again, be careful to align everywhere so that you can stick in under the edge. If you didn't align it right, in the sense that, for example, it's sticking out too much, which is possible, this is a very curvy car, so it's not the easiest installation, and corrections will be needed. But I'll show you how to do these corrections too. It's not that hard. Notice what I'm doing here. I take this pressure in the film and I try to move it to be throughout bigger length of the film. This way, we essentially distribute all this pressure that we have here throughout the entire length of this edge, which makes it much easier to handle that pressure. Clean water again. We want this to stick, and we want to know that it's going to be where we leave it. So now we have a bunch of fingers, and we should do the finger test to find out if they're going to cause any issues later. And what the finger test is that I'll go over it with my squeegee and see if it wants to lay down or it wants to wrinkle. If it wants to lay down, we're all good. We just need the film to be more sticky, which will happen when it dries up. If it wants to wrinkle, on the other hand, you need to distribute the pressure of the wrinkle. Because if it wants to wrinkle now, it will want to wrinkle later. I'll do the same here. So, doing the finger test on this to see if it wants to wrinkle, and if it wants to wrinkle, then I need to make adjustments. I need to move these fingers around so that when it dries up, I can squeegee them without any wrinkles. Usually, you're better off having multiple small fingers than a few big ones. Just to give you an idea of what we are trying to achieve here. Alright, I believe that this will now work. So all we need is to wait for this to dry up a little bit. So let's do this. I'll install the front fender on the passenger side, and I'll come back to this one after that to work with the fingers, with these wrinkles. So it's been about half an hour since I installed the driver's side fender, and let me show you what it looks like now. So what I'll do is that I'll see opportunistically where it wants to stick. So I'll just go over everything like this. And if it wants to stick, great. If it doesn't, I'll come back in another half an hour. As I said, sooner or later this film will dry up and then it will start sticking. But we won't be folding the edges before that happens. Oftentimes it will take hours for the film to completely dry up to be ready for edges, but we should come and revisit every place that we know has fingers and just do like this. Because if we made the wrong judgment, for example, let's say I determined that, this finger is gonna be fine, but it turns out that it's not. Before the film has fully dried up and cured, I can still fix it easily. Once it dries up, it becomes much harder. Oh, look at that. This one is almost gone. All right, it's about 45 minutes since the last time I checked, and I'll recheck again. And because I have an expectation that this will now start becoming dry, I'll start with my finger and I'll just push it and see how it reacts. And as you see, now it's starting to conform to the shapes. At this time, I'll pop the front door open carefully and I will detach the film from it. And let's just try to put it in there so that we can fold it later. And now I'll just run my finger like this to kind of sculpt on the edge. And now I'll try to push the film where it would previously cause headaches and see if it will stick. Notice how I'm approaching the wrinkles here, the fingers, sorry. I'm doing it with my own finger instead of the squeegee to get a sense of how the film will be acting, because if the film is cured, I might create a wrinkle going with the squeegee. This way I get to feel if a wrinkle is about to happen, like here, and maybe I can work around it like this. Some more drying would be needed. Let's continue here. I see that this is going to wrinkle if I press it, so what I did is to just peel back a little bit. And all I'm looking for right now is to just reach the edge. That's it. I'm not gonna be folding now. I just want to reach the edge. Okay, we have a bubble here. Here's when it's close to the edge, just peel off to let it go out. Okay, that's a good example of when a wrinkle wants to happen. So this is how you handle this. Peel off. And now we distribute this throughout the length of the film. Now I'm technically folding the edge here, but I'm not making it stick. I'm just getting it out of the way so that I can run my finger like this without leaving any air trapped here. Same here, we have a bubble. I'll just lift up and reapply like this. At this point, I also want to check my hood and run my finger on the edge like this. Let's do it like this and see if it will fold, because it's been a while. Yeah, it folds. Okay, so the hood seems to be pretty much ready to fold, so let's do that. Here is how you do it. You have to start on the outer edge and push inside. Don't just push here. If you just push on the inside, you risk leaving an air gap right here. So start here and finish on the inside like this. Look what it looks like on the other side. Now, this very edge I'll leave for now, because this might require a heat gun. I'll just go in the middle, and I'll leave this. Just conform it like this. And as I said, we'll handle these wrinkles a little bit later with a heat gun. But let's try to get the bulk of it if it's ready. So here is the thing. This will depend, when it becomes ready, will depend on your soapy solution. More soap would require more drying time. It would also greatly depend on the ambient temperatures. So right now here it's about 80 degrees, so it's pretty hot, but that allows me to wrap a little bit faster. If you're doing it at low temperatures, then chances are you have to wait more. For context, it's been about 2 hours since I installed the hood. Now let's do the passenger fender, see if that's dry enough. Yeah, it seems to be fine. Again, small bubble, just peel off. And redo, like this. Okay, now this one might be trickier, let's see. Yeah, this one, I can feel it, that it won't just go down. Okay, let me see. I'll leave this for a little bit later. Let me check this side. Yeah, this side is looking good. Again, this wants to wrinkle, so I'll grab my plastic squeegee now and try to fix this. I just go with squeegee. No. Okay, so I'm gonna need to open this a little bit, like this, so that I can move the pressure. I made a small wrinkle here, so I'm gonna open again. There you go. See, it's pretty easy. You just need to be patient with this. All right, now this one. Let's see. I can see that this one is not ready to stick yet. Probably needs some more time drying up, but at least I got it to a nicer place where it will be a lot easier to finish it once this dries up. If you remember, I said this earlier, it's easier to have several smaller fingers compared to one big one. Yeah, same here. It would need a little bit more drying time. And don't forget to tuck in the PPF in between the door and the fender. And once you do, just run your finger like this to make sure there is no air on the edge. Alright, as I said, I'm gonna continue with installing other things and I'll come back to this later. Alright, so now that we're waiting for the fenders and the hood to fully dry up, I'll get this sheet out of the way and put the next one in and begin that installation. And shortly after, I will recheck them just in case. Now, in the spirit of transparency, I had to take about an hour and a half break because I had an issue with my microphone. So I ended up buying a new one from Best Buy so I can continue this. And I'm saying this just to give you an idea of how much time has passed in terms of drying. I still want to do something from this sheet, and then I'll go try to finish the fenders and the hood. Now this sheet is a bit longer. I'll have to take it out of the table like this. And again, as a reminder, this is a 96-inch long table. So on this one, we have trunk, rear doors, these camtrails or roof lines, I don't know what we'll call them. And yeah, that's about that. Oh, and this is the front lip. This is the very last thing we're gonna install. So there will be sheets where I'll leave something on it and put the next sheet on top. Because of the sequence I want to follow in terms of installation. Now, if you're wondering why didn't you cut them in sequence, that's a valid question, and the reason is that we're trying to optimize how much material we use, which largely depends on what are we cutting. So that's not always possible to optimize in terms of installation sequence, and that's why sometimes we optimize for the material length and not the installation sequence. My primary concern when installing is that before the edges are folded in one place, I don't want to be installing right next to it. So for instance, I can do this, but then I'll get this wet, and I haven't folded the edges here yet. So I want to fold these edges before I do this one. All right, let's clean the door and a little bit of the neighboring panels. Make sure to go here under the trim, the window trim and the door itself. Sometimes there's dirt there, which will go under the film. Also remember to clean the edges. And during the install, I'll leave this door a little bit open so that I can put the film in there instead of overlapping it. Now, just before I transfer the film, I'm spraying the door again, and I'll go get the film. So now that we have transferred the film, we need to align it and start squeeging. The first thing I'll do is to kind of make the film even as much as I can with just my hands. I'll just get the large bubbles out. Notice the two ends, they kind of like go up, and this is where you align, so that part that goes up, it will wrap around, and it should be where the window trim ends. Same on the other side. I don't know if it's visible. The other thing to know about aligning this is it's very easy to create a gap here. So go a little bit higher and push the film inside. You want the film to go a little bit inside that window trim. Just a little bit. If you overdo it by a little, that's not the end of the world. You can always trim it. But if you leave a gap, it's gonna be harder to fix. Now, because of the soapy water, the film wants to go down. And I'll start removing that water and keep realigning it as I do until the film stops moving. If your squeegee starts dragging against the film, you need to respray the film. Now I really want to start getting that water out, so now I'm applying pressure when squeeging. And now I'll tuck the film in so it doesn't get stuck on the quarter panel, and then make sure to squeegee the edge. Okay, let's go at it again, just to make sure there is nothing left, and then I'll work on these more intricate areas. Especially at these curves, like this one, a little bit this one, definitely this one. Be careful because it's very easy to leave water at the curve. Make sure you get everything out. Now, we'll do the tucking around the door handle a little bit later. I'm just mostly trying to get the water out here opportunistically, like whatever I can get. The rest I'll recheck in a little bit. You know, the same thing as the front. As the film dries up, I'll keep rechecking on it, I'll keep squeegeeing it. Now I want to get that water out, that's over here. And notice how like the edge is lifting up. That's because the film is very, very wet. Once it starts drying, we'll be able to lay down the edges as well, making sure that there aren't any wrinkle causing fingers here. All right, perfect. I'll come back in a little bit. I'll show you, of course, to squeegee some more. So I'm gonna do the rear door. Now maybe it's time we go recheck the front and see if we can make some more progress there. All right, let's see if we can finish this now. So I'll use a tool that I previously didn't show you. It's called a weeding tool to kind of pick it up from here because I got a small wrinkle that I would rather fix. There you go. And now I'll use the edge tool to tuck it in. Remember that this will only work when the PPF is completely dry. Alright, now let's do some edge folding here. I first want to fold these edges. And I'll open the door like this. And first I'll run my finger over the edge like that to remove any air or water that might be left over. And then you just press in. Here at the very bottom it's a bit trickier because you don't have much space. Now let's do around the fender, and notice there is a plastic trim here. You want to tuck this under the trim. You generally don't need to remove the trim, but if you want, you can. I'll just try without removing it. I'll lift it up a little bit to get the film started, and then like this. That's the beauty of this tool. Now if you didn't position perfectly and you have a little bit of paint showing, you can always stretch the film a little bit. If you warm it up, it will stretch more, but be careful because you may tear it. Again, the same technique. You start from the visible side and then you just slide on the other end. Now let's do the top. and the front. Now I'll use my plastic squeegee and I'll stick it in there and do like this so that the squeegee touches the bottom side of this fender and makes the film stick. And for this part where it's in contact with the bumper, you're gonna need this too. Now, because this curvy car, there is some stretching of the film, as you saw. It is possible that alignments will not always be perfect. Unfortunately, that's the reality when you're working on anything different than the Cybertruck, really. So I got a little bit of overhang here, which I might need to trim with my utility knife. I'm trying to tuck it in, but I don't want to disassemble anything, and I have a little bit more than I wanted. So, as I said, I'll just trim it. I'll start very conservatively. I'll start against the bumper, actually, not immediately in between the two. So I'll go very gently against the bumper with my utility knife. There you go. And there you have it. Perfect edge. Now let's do this one. It's very similar to what you saw. I'll make sure that this immediate area is also folded. And first, I'll go with this tool. See how far we can go with this tool alone. Well, we're lucky. The panel gap here gave in just enough so I can tuck in my film. I don't need to cut anything. This edge is done. And now only the upper edge is left. So here's how the upper edge works. First, again, go with your finger. Make sure you're not leaving any air or water. And then pick a spot. I usually prefer the middle because it allows me to dissipate the pressure on each side. Alright, I got a little fold here because I was working with one hand, so I'll just lift up and redo this part. You know, if you're wondering why that video doesn't look like a smooth Hollywood production where everything is just going great without any struggle, the reason is that I want you to see what I really experienced. We're gonna edit this video a little bit to shorten it because who's gonna watch like 8 hours of this? But we're not gonna remove anything meaningful because I want you to know what to expect if you decide to get this wrap. In all fairness, actually, you may find this funny, but this is also the first time I'll be doing the entire wrap. I developed this model from scratch. The way I would do it is that I will always be installing one panel at a time, the panel I'm working on. And I've never installed all of them one after another. So for me, it's also first. I have the occasional struggle, as you can see, but you also have it. And I think this will help you see how to deal with the issues. Right, the last part is over here. We want to tuck it in. So here it seems I pulled the film a little bit more than needed. So I have a little bit of PPF that has nowhere to go. I'll just cut it out. Let me see if the heat gun is going to make this easier. All right, it's pretty good. I may want to recheck it later, but for now, it's looking good. Now, let's finish that hood. So if you remember previously, we folded a lot of the edges. I didn't fold them right here in the end because the end is a bit trickier because you need to lower the hood but not close it. Otherwise, you just don't have access. And try to get your fingers in here. All right. Same on the other side. And last for the hood, Remember I told you let's leave this for later? Now is that later. What you need to do is use a heat gun to warm it up a little bit. Okay, now notice all these wrinkles, but when you're actually installing this, or go check your hood now, you'll notice that this is like 2 levels of the aluminum that the hood is built out of. So these wrinkles are on the lower level. What I'll do is that I'll get my utility knife, I'll put it on the lower level, and I'll just cut out this part. Or you can leave them. I mean, if they don't bother you, nothing's gonna happen. This allows you to distribute the pressure there and then get rid of the material. If we made it shorter, let's say if we made it so that we cut it this way, then all of your pressure will be here. You can't remove it. Same on this side. There you go. The hood is ready. Okay, now the fenders and the hood are done. I will recheck them throughout the installation just in case, but overall they're pretty much done. I have a little bit of wrinkles here, sorry, not wrinkles, fingers, that I'm waiting for the film to dry up, but other than that, it's looking amazing. Now let's see if this is dry enough. Not completely dry, so I will not be folding these edges, but I'll squeegee a little bit, you know, get some more water out. Let's see, maybe I can work on this thing. Oh yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, this definitely needs more drying time, so I'll examine the opposite side door just in case, and let's continue with wrapping the next panel. We'll come back to the doors a little bit later. Now, because I already folded here, I think I can do these panels. So I'll start with the driver's side. Again, notice the letter D on the cutout. And I'll clean this. Make sure to clean where the weather strip is, here between the roof and the panel, because oftentimes there will be some dirt there. Now notice the front side is the one that looks like this. The back side is more like straight cut. And I want to just put it here. I don't want to be working against gravity. And for this one, you'll need your clean water, because we'll spray here with clean water to give it a little bit of tack. And now let's align it. Notice that this will also fold around the edges, so you should give it, you know, a little bit of extra. And the other things to be aware of is see how it will fold on each side to make sure that you're positioning it properly. So use the squeegee to kind of tuck in, see if it looks good. See on the other side, let's squeegee. And now on the opposite side, it's a little bit shorter on purpose, just a little bit, just slightly pull. And now on the opposite side, get more of the water out, and we will do precise alignment after that. Okay, it would appear I need a little bit more tack here, maybe on a larger area, because as I pulled on the opposite side, this one moved. I don't want that. I'll use a little bit of water on the other end. Some more clean water. Sooner or later it will work. Okay, let's respray, re-squeegee, make sure there is no water left. For the last passes of the squeegeeing, I'm really putting a lot of pressure here because I don't want any water left. All right, I think this part's done. Obviously now we need to wait for it to dry up. I'll go do the passenger side. All right, now that we've made it so far, I think it's time for the trunk. The first thing you want to do is take off any badging that you have. I'll show you how, and remove the license plate, and then we'll clean it. Alright, for the rear, I'll follow the exact same principle: heat, string, and glue gun. I don't actually need, maybe I don't even need the string here, but I'll use it anyways, just to make sure I don't scratch the paint as I'm removing the leather. Be careful when you lift the letters up, because it's easy to, it's tempting to just pull to one side, in which case you may end up with a tiny scratch on the paint. If it's difficult to get the string under, you can try to first disposition the leather a little bit. When it's hot, you can actually wiggle it. There you go. Also be careful, because if you overdo it with the heat gun, you can actually melt your paint. I did it once by accident and it's not fun. So don't overdo it with the heat gun. You can always add more heat if whatever you did was not enough, but if you heat it too much, you might melt the paint. There you go. Go down again. So basically I'm removing the thick part of the double-sided adhesive that we used. And once that's removed, the glue gun will take good care of the very, very thin layer of glue that remains. And remember, before installing any PPF on this, you need to clean it well. I recommend IPA and soapy water. And there you go. No more badges. Again, don't forget the edges and the neighboring panels. So I'll begin the installation with this piece, and then I'll put this one. So before I do, I'll spray and squeegee one last time. And by the way, make sure you also clean here under this, because our wrap goes there too. All right, here we will align over here at the light, and we'll start removing that water. Notice that this cut pattern that I've developed tucks in a little bit under the tail light, so you are expected to tuck it in, just so you know. And for the time being, I'm just maintaining general position on the other side, but I'm not aligning there, because again, to clear this curve, not have these wrinkles, we have to stretch a little bit, about ½ an inch of stretch, very little, but makes a world of difference. But before we can do that, we have to do this side right. I'll use a little bit of clean water here to get some adhesion. Maybe I put a little bit too much soap in my soapy solution. I don't know, but this is way too slippery. Okay, now let me show you what I'm doing on the other side, but I'll keep coming back to the driver's side as well until this looks perfect. Although I think the water thing worked, because as you see now, I'm pulling the film a little bit and see how it removes the wrinkles, and the film is not moving. This is exactly what I wanted. So this is what it looks on the other side. As you see, it doesn't reach it naturally. So I'm pulling a little bit, and I'll use clean water again. Not too much, but I want to get some adhesion here. And now I'll pull and start squeegeeing, start removing that water. Check the bottom. You want the film to wrap around, but not cover the plastic trim where the camera and the button to open the trunk are. So you want it to go all the way up to it without covering it. That looks like it needs a little bit more water. Notice how I'm pushing the film under the body of the tail light, so I get a professional looking installation without any visible paint. Now let's finish this side. Okay, we have this finger here that I'll come back to a little bit later. But before I continue on to the upper panel, I want to spray this. I want to clean the soap. So I'm spraying this with clean water just to get rid of that soap there. And for the time being, I'll just leave it hanging like that because we need it to be dry to finish this part. Let's make sure that everything is looking good. And let's move on to this panel. Same approach as with other large panels. I'm lifting up half and then the other half. Right. Let's transfer. Smooth it out like this. And now I will start with the alignment here. Make sure that these two pieces either overlap or they just connect. Let's get some of that water out. It would make it easier to work. Check this edge. Ideally, you want the edge to be right here on this corner. Let's use a little bit of clean water here to make it stay. Now let's align on the opposite side. Same principle. Keep checking that you're not creating a gap between the upper and lower pieces. Although if you plan on installing a spoiler, even a gap wouldn't be a problem, but still, better do it right. All right. Okay, recheck for gaps. And now, counterintuitive, let's open it a little bit. And let's spray some clean water here. You might be wondering why. The reason is that getting two edges to meet together nicely without any defects is close to impossible if both of the edges are wet. That's why we need to wait for this to dry up before we can finish the edges here. And that's why I want at least the upper edge to be hanging in the air so I can have access to the lower edge to finish it up when the whole thing dries up. Now let's recheck what happened here. And do some more work here. We introduced a lot of water, even some of it might have come in this PPF in the lower piece, so it's a good idea to recheck, to re-squeegee, make sure you don't have any unexpected bubbles here. Oh, this is still waiting to dry. It will be really easy to fix once it dries up. Everything else looks good. And now we just wait for all of this to dry so we can finish that part. We can work on this one in the meantime. We can kind of tuck this in there to be out of the way. And we can place this piece as well so everything is drying up together. Alright, this one is a very easy piece. Just align it here. Now, make sure that this piece is stuff that goes down is over this PPF, not under. Alright, let's start squeegeeing to get some stability. I will again use a little bit of clean water here to make this stick better. And notice here on the edge, so again, this, like any other piece of this wrap, it wraps around so that at the end of this installation, your car would look like it was bulk wrapped in a shop, even though this was a pre-cut kit. That was, you know, part of what I tried to achieve with this custom pattern that I developed to get a really, really good pre-cut kit. Obviously, if someone is looking into the details, they can see that these two pieces meet together, although I've seen shops, some shops actually, they do it that way anyway. Keep rechecking here that this goes all the way up to this panel. And when you're done, spray the edges with clean water. If you're wondering why I keep spraying the edges with clean water, the reason is that once this dries up, I want to fold the edges. And if there is still soap residue, that folding process is harder, more time consuming, riskier that it will lift up. If that happens to you, like let's say you forgot, that's okay, you can always clean them up and redo the edges. But it takes time if I do it now. Now we wait. So it's been about 4 hours since I installed the trunk and I took a break, and now I'll go through everything that I did today and see what I can fix, what edges I can fold, and you know, basically try to get this into a much more finished state before I continue tomorrow. So first, that's the driver's side front fender. I see that it lifted up. Probably when I folded it previously, it was still wet, so I'll just redo it now. If you remember, for this part I used the weeding tool to pick it up because it kind of wants to wrinkle here, so I'll do the same this time. And I'm just distributing the pressure throughout a larger perimeter. Now, for this part in the edging, I will use a heat gun to reduce the risk of this happening again. So here's the deal. Once you make paint protection film warm, it becomes soft, it conforms to shapes, it becomes a lot stickier, and that's why we need that heat gun. Alright, obviously I will recheck throughout the installation. If something lifts up, I'll fix it again. If an edge is particularly stubborn, we might need a little bit of super glue to glue it down. Let's move on. Let's see if that pure or whatever it's called is good to be folded now. I'm gonna try to put it under the weather strip here. and I may have pulled it a little bit too much, so I have a little bit of an overhang here, which I'll trim with the utility knife. So as I said, I have a little bit of an overhang. Stuff like that can happen. So I'll begin by making a slice at the overhang. Let's try with just one. See what would be the easiest way to fix this. And I will fold this edge, and then I'll fold the other one, or at least I'll try to fold the other one over the first one. Trim a little bit more. Alright, so that's the idea. If it doesn't stick, you can put just a little bit of super glue on that edge and it will stick. I'll leave that for a little bit later. Okay, let's move on to check out the entire length of this. I'll first do this edge. Notice that there is a weather strip here, so you want to tuck it in. Obviously this will not stick over the weather strip, so it has to go under. I'm using the edge tool to just open the weather strip so I can tuck in the PPF under it. Alright, now that we're here, we can do this. I may need to warm this up a little bit. Notice that there are a bunch of welds here, but once you close the trunk, this is not really visible. If you don't like something, you can always trim it. For instance, I don't like how this touches here. Feels like a weak spot, so I'll just do a slight trim over here. Alright, let's do the bottom edge now. Now, I did get a few wrinkles here. You can fix these with the heat gun and stretching a little bit, but frankly, I wouldn't, because they're not gonna cause any issues, and I just don't see too much of a benefit of removing them. Another thing you can do is just remove some of the material, just like I did with the hood. Okay, I'll continue with the bottom edge now. Again, we're just tucking under this weather strip, that's all. I'm opening the film just a little bit because it sagged a little bit here, and as a result it's sticking to this trim, so it's basically causing issues because it sagged. Let me see if I can start from the other side. Where can I get to? And the rest I'll just trim off. I mean, I can spend some time trying to tuck this in, but it's too much material, so I prefer to just trim it off. I'll finish this now and then I'll come back to this to fix this. Okay, now let's see about this one. First thing I'm gonna do is I'll pull this out again. Just a little bit. See, it goes over this trim, and it shouldn't be, just that the film dropped a little bit. And let's see, I'll gently remove just a little bit of the material. Alright, let's see if we get better results now. Now we can tuck it in. Perfect. Alright, let's move on to the door. Alright, this is the driver's side rear door. Let's see. Seems to be nice and dry now. Let's see how much we can do without the heat gun. Alright, time for the heat gun. Okay. Now let's see if we can do these edges. So where that curve is, I'll start with the heat gun and let me show you the technique here. So first you want to warm up a couple of inches on each side, and then we'll fold here and pull a little bit on the two other sides. Pull up, pull this one up and this way, and this one down and this way, to stretch the film and eliminate wrinkles on the very edge. Alright, before I continue with that part, I'll try to fix all of this first. Okay, so first I will pick this up on this side, what I'm picking, and I'll pull a little bit to kind of make it conform to this corner here. And we'll go on the other side of the edge work and finish that and make it nice in a little bit. I'm just trying to get the bulk of it done. So just like the roof lines, there is a weather strip here, and I'm trying to tuck this under. I'll use a squeegee to just lift up this trim just a little bit so that I can get under this weather strip. Okay, well, I can't seem to get under it in this particular segment. Maybe it's, you know, tighter fit. What I'll do is I will trim just a little bit here. There you go. Okay, it's looking much better. Now let's go to the back and let's work a little bit on that. I have a tiny bubble here. I can just poke it with this and squeeze it out, or I can lift up the film to remove it. Okay, let's move here. So I have some bubbles here that I want to squeeze out now. For these more stubborn ones, I have to lift up a little bit, like this. Let's finish this thing, which was previously causing issues. Now that it's dry, it's much easier. There you go. I'll just do the stuff that's on this side now. All right, we can, I believe we can do some folding here. This seems mostly dried up. So let's start here from the middle, and I'll just run my fingers like this. This not only folds it, but it warms it up, which helps with the folding and sticking. Actually, first I'll do this so I can freely touch it, so I can lift this tailgate up. It will make my life a little bit easier. So let's go back to this. Let's finish this. Same principle as everything else so far. going on here. A little bit of heat gun here, most likely. A bunch of weld spots. And just like the hood, this is a big corner to clear. You will get some wrinkles, and if they bother you, you can trim them off here at the weld line, or you can spend a decent amount of time trying to fix them one by one. As you can see, you can just slowly work your way through all these wrinkles. Now let's move on along the line. And now I have more than half of this cleared, so I'll, just for the fun of it, I want to make it less boring, and I'll continue with this. I don't know, maybe just me, but I like switching between components. Keeps it more interesting. So that folding that I told you about, we'll start here in the middle, and I'll slowly draw a line with my fingers again and again until all of this is folded. Alternatively, if you don't want to do this, you can just slice it off. This part is hardly visible, so totally up to you. Now, something to be aware of, you can probably see two lines here. It seems that I put this component a little bit higher than I should have. I also got a tiny bit of gap in here at the very corner, which further verifies that I put it a little bit higher than I should, and I'm getting two lines. If I did it perfectly, then it would have been, just the two PPFs meeting together. But this is, let's be realistic, this is really difficult to do that way. So it's very likely that you will also have two lines. One thing you can do if the two lines bother you is to use the utility knife. I can show you a little bit later, but this can be improved if it bothers you. On the other hand, as I said earlier, if you're going to be putting a spoiler, for example, you can just leave it like that. This is pretty much like what I did on the other side. I seem to have overstretched this just a little bit, so I can either glue this corner to the back like this or trim it. I'll deal with this corner later. All right, let's finish here. Now let's do the other part. Right, here I have some weird weld, and those would be a little bit inconsistent from car to car, so I'll just trim this off here. Again, keep in mind that this is a part of the car that barely anyone would see. I have a little bit of gap, I can see the paint, so I'll just lift up and reposition carefully. All right, passenger side, gonna be much of the same. Okay, right now this is refusing to stick. I'll give it some more drying time, and if it doesn't stick, I'll just use a little bit of super glue and it will stick. So I'll most likely do this tomorrow. Okay, maybe now is a good time to show you what the edges would look like. notice all of these are weld marks. Nothing we can do about those. Alright, let's recheck here. So this would need a little heat gun, maybe glue. What I want to do here is to stretch it just a little bit like this so that it conforms to these shapes. And if it refuses to stay, again, a little bit of super glue does wonders. Let me check. This edge doesn't look good, so if that happens to you, let's see. I think the easiest thing to do is to peel off a little bit around it, pull a little, and redo. And then I'm starting at this so that this looks good. And I'm folding on the back. There you go. Okay, now I have to do this. This is rather unpleasant, I'll be honest, because this weather strip is really tight, so it's really hard to get under it. I might need to trim again. Let's see. I'll use my squeegee to lift this trim just a little bit. Now when you get to this end, there is this little strip. You want to lift it up and go under. And now this edge, I'll just run my fingers like this to warm it up and to clear the edge. And first I'll install the upper part. Basically motions like this seem to work well. Beautiful. We'll do the same here. And again, for the nasty edges, use the heat gun, pull a little bit to avoid a large wrinkle. I'm curious to see, this didn't happen when I was developing the model. Obviously there will be small variations every time this is installed. I'll just try to clear this wrinkle here. I'll peel off a little bit. Let me see if I go at the wrinkle, maybe with the help of a heat gun. Yeah, I think that was definitely worth it. There you go. Okay, so basically this is left. I'll leave this for tomorrow, give it a little bit more drying time to see if it will do any better tomorrow, because it's pretty late today. And if not, as I said, this little part that's not sticking here, I'll just put a tiny bit of super glue here, push it, and it will stick. Now I have this to finish. It's the same principle as before. So I see that the film slipped a little bit, so now I have this exposed edge. Don't panic, this is easy to fix. Pop the front open, and the first thing you want to do if that happens is to peel off the edges here, to pick them up. And we'll just peel off a little bit. We'll stretch a little bit and cover it, and then we'll fold the edges again. Now this is a tricky spot because you don't have much space for the fingers, so you gotta play with how open the hood is without pinching your fingers. Let's see, did I fix it? Yes. Now I'll just use a heat gun to form it better on this edge. So this is day 2 of the installation. I got the trunk, the rear doors, front fenders and hood yesterday, as well as these roof lines. And now I have the front lip on the bumper left. That would be probably the very last thing I install. So I will just cut this off and save it for later. We're providing 2 of these just in case. You only need 1 generally. Alright, so this is the 3rd sheet out of 4, and let me walk you through what is here. We have the front passenger door, the front quarter panel with the rockers, the rear bumper, cutout for the tow hook cap on the rear bumper, mirrors, and we're providing multiple sets of the mirrors just in case, door handles in case you want to wrap the black door handles, and this is if you are a professional, a shop for example, or just really adventurous and you want to bulk wrap your mirror. So this is actually a cutout for a mirror tool. This is what the mirror tool looks like, and you can put this on the mirror tool and try to bulk wrap. I'm not gonna do that because I'm not that good at wrapping, but again, if you're a professional, go for it. All right, so I think I'm gonna start with the door and the mirrors, and then I'll continue with either one of these 2. Let's see how it goes. All right, just like the rear door, we are going to align by the door handle and that upper trim, and I'm gonna start squeegeeing so that the film doesn't drop down. I got some dirt here, so I'm spraying clean water and rubbing this off. Now notice this shape here that folds. You're not looking for the window trim to be on its edge. So this edge of the film is actually a little bit inwards. One way to tell if your positioning is right is to look at the door handle. You shouldn't see any of your paint when looking at the door handle. You can even press a little bit to make sure that the door handle itself is centered within the cutout. I'll give it a little bit of clean water here to make it stay. And again, make sure that your positioning here is good. Use the squeegee. The film will not stick at this point, but you can still use the squeegee to see where it will go. All right. Now let's spray this one more time and squeegee a little bit harder this time. Now I'm just trying to make sure that there is no water left. And notice it will not stick here right away. You'll have to wait for this to dry up. Make sure you don't leave any water here at the curves. All right. Now I will tuck the film in here and make sure that the edge is free of water. Okay, maybe it would be easier if I opened the door. Just a little bit like this. And I'm tucking this top corner here, like this. Now basically trying to get this to the best possible state for the drying process. So whatever I can tuck in, squeegee out, now is a decent time to do it. All right, this is looking good. Obviously it's not finished. We will have to wait for this to dry up. So I will continue with the mirror, and I'll be revisiting this door every now and then to see how the drying is going and squeegee some more. Lastly, before I continue with the next thing, let me show you how to handle the door handles. We provide a bunch of these in case you want to have the door handles wrapped. You basically spray soapy water on it, you center it onto the door handle, squeegee out, and then wait. And once it dries up, we'll use a heat gun to wrap around. Super easy, just put it there, leave it, and when it's dry, we'll finish it. So for my next task, I can either install the quarter panel with the rocker, or I can do the rear bumper. And I choose to do the rear bumper first, and the reason is that both the front and the rear bumpers are really curvy. So the only way to install a two-dimensional film onto a three-dimensional shape, that shape in particular, would be to stretch it. So there will be a lot of stretching for the rear and the front bumpers, and I don't want this neighboring panel to be in my way of that stretching. So I prefer to do the rear bumper first, and then I'll do this. Now let me talk a little bit about the bumpers. If you notice, your bumper has a cap which can be removed to install a tow hook, and you can either install over this cap, or you can remove the cap and then add it back later. I will show you both ways. On the rear, I'll show you how to remove the cap, and on the front, I'll show you how to install over the cap. And then we will, if you remove the cap, you'll wrap it. These cutouts are for the rear cap, and on the last sheet, on the fourth sheet, where the front bumper is, there are cutouts for the front cap. Notice that they're different. The front cap is elliptical, the rear cap is circular. Now, if you're wondering why didn't I make a cutout for that on the film, the reason is that once you start stretching, that circle becomes an ellipse. I found it extremely frustrating and extremely difficult to install the film properly without any paint showing if I removed the cap and added the hole. That's why I found it much easier to either install over the cap. If you never use this, you can just install over it, or if you plan on using them, you can remove the cap, install, and then you cut it with your knife, and you wrap there, you wrap the cap, reinstall the cap. It's much easier, much easier. So let's go on the back, let's clean this bumper, and let me show you how to remove the cap. All right, so here is the cap on the rear bumper. You remove it the same way on the front and the rear, and this is, you press, if that was a clock, you press at around 1 or 2 o'clock here until it pops out, and then you can just remove it. And it's held by this plastic piece here, which I can just remove as well. So I'll be installing over this hole, and then I'll cut with my utility knife, wrap it around these edges, and then I'll wrap the cap itself with the cutout that we provide for it. I'll now clean this and begin the installation. All right, this is a tricky one, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. You may benefit a helper to help you hold this so you don't drop it to the ground. I'll try to do it myself. And I'll quickly squeegee here and there so that this stays somewhere, not on the ground. For this, I'm gonna need my clean water, and I'll start on one side, and I want to make it pack a little bit. I may need to give it more space on this side, so I'll just move the film a little bit like this, so that I can pull on the other side initially to, to just position it properly. I'll start with this. Notice that for this one there will be multiple repositionings. It's as I said, it's tricky, but I want to start somewhere, so I'll start here. Then I'm going to move over here. Now I want to position this part along the line, maybe a millimeter above it, so it can, fold inside this line. And if it's not sticking, I mean, if it's sliding so easily, you may want to use some clean water. Make sure that you have enough material on the other side to wrap around. If you end up with too much, that's okay. You can always trim that. Okay, so for the time being, what I'm looking for is some initial alignment here that is going to stay there, hence the clean water. Because I now need to go on the other side and pull, and then we will adjust all of this. But for now, I need to be able to pull on the other side, knowing that this will stay here. If it moves, I have to start over with that part. All right, let's go to the other side. So here, I'll peel this off and stretch it. And it is quite a bit of stretch. Now, you want to be able to let go so you can squeegee without this going back. And to do that, you need to use some clean water. Notice that I'm stretching with my right hand and squeegeeing with my left. And again, this will get repositioned along the way. Right now, I'm just looking to get some initial alignment and stretch. Okay, I think it's time we spray clean water here. Let's stretch again. Now, I think we have some general stretching. Obviously, nothing matches anything right now. So what I'll do instead is that I'll go in the middle and squeegee a little bit of this to help me have a third anchoring point, so to say. Before I squeegee here though, I'm gonna make sure that this aligns well on the bottom. All right, not too much, about 12 inches or so, but this way the middle is somewhat more stable. Even though I didn't spray with clean water, if I need it even more stable, I would have to spray some clean water in there. But let's see how that goes. Now at this point, I want to start positioning everything correctly. The film has spent a couple of minutes being stretched like that. That means that when I let go, it will shrink back, but not entirely. It won't go back to its original shape. So that allows me to let go and stretch again, and this time it will be easier. And I will be able to be more accurate with my alignment. So I'm looking at this corner and this. See, I need a little bit more. The film is pulling back, so I'm using clean water. I think I stretched a bit too much, so I'll let go again, redo it again. It will save me time later. All right, now this part looks fine, so I'll fix this before continuing to the other end. So we need to align here at the bottom. This is where the cap will be. We'll make an incision later. All right, now this. I'll give it more water. Although, if we don't have any soap here, we might start seeing bubbles. If that happens, I'll have to respray with soap. I think I'll need to reposition this a little bit. Like this, maybe. Now, I'll stretch on the bottom as well. It's time we start doing that. So on the bottom, I'll be stretching down and forward. So what I'm trying to achieve now is to make the film conform here in this area, and then I'll fix the top, or so I think. Let's see what happens. This is looking pretty good here. Let me try to move the camera and show you. Okay, so this is what I'm looking at. And I will make sure that these fingers are not going to cause issues later. If you think they are, you need to stretch some more. But this is what it currently looks like. I'll do some more stretching just to remove some more of that pressure, and then I'll focus on fixing this. The other thing to keep in mind is that you want enough film here to wrap around. So if you don't see enough, it means you need to stretch some more. It's easier to just trim it off if you have too much than adding extra film to cover the paint. Now I'm letting this loose so I can stretch some more, because I see I need like half more inch or so. But again, the film is already deformed, which is a good thing, because every next time I do this, it will be easier. It will be a lot easier. And if you can get someone to help you with this, it will be a lot easier than what you see here, because it's helpful when I stretch to have someone to squeegee. In my case, I have to do both by myself to show you that this is also possible. I'm just saying that it's easier if someone is there to help you. Now I almost have zero pressure here. I'm very, very close, and this will wrap around now with tiny bit more stretching. Let's try to fix that top now. I'm just getting rid of the leftover water. And final wrinkles here. I'm stretching towards the driver's side on the bottom to, you know, get some of these wrinkles out. Again, with so much stretching, there is no way this will just fit perfectly without any gaps or any excess anywhere. So you want to avoid gaps, and excess is fine because you can trim it. So make sure you don't have any gaps, and we'll trim the stuff we don't need a little bit later. Now this pressure is actually fine, I think. Let's try to move it up a little bit. Okay, we'll see later. And I'm checking to see if it wraps around. I'm gapping a little bit here, so I'll stretch some more, although I can also stretch a little bit after the film has dried up. All right, I would say that this side is done, and I'll move on to the other side. Let me show you what I've got so far. So you can see the film can wrap around, and the excess I'll just cut. We have that finger that I think is going to be all right. We can definitely fix it later. We have a few small fingers here. These are very easy. I have a little bit of overlap. I have a little bit of overlap here, which I'll just trim off. More importantly, I don't have any gaps. This will fold around later. And now this side, I'll probably need to respray and finish that side. All right, I'll spray the film on top so I can slide my squeegee without scratching it. And I will start here in the middle, actually. Let's get this water out. Now the film here started drying up, so I might need to peel off and respray here and there per need, just to make sure we don't have any bubbles here. And now this part. I will actually open it because there is a lot more stretching to do here. We spray and let the stretching begin. I see I have a little gap here, which means I need to open again and lower it just a little bit. Now be mindful of the following. If you notice, I keep spraying my fingers. The reason is that I touch the floor, I touch the squeegee, and I pick up dirt as I do. And then when I touch the back side of the PPF, I might transfer that dirt onto the PPF. You know, just be aware that your hands can transfer dirt too. Okay, that's much better. I no longer have this gap. As you can see, the approach here is to just work slowly and, you know, take your time, keep stretching, and it will eventually fit. But by now you've probably seen for yourself how stretching helps with wrinkles, and you realize that, you know, there is no other way to do something that curvy. Stretching is a must. At this point, I'm just trying to make these fingers smaller so that once the film dries up, I can just make it stick without getting any wrinkles. Obviously, if somewhere I made the wrong determination and it wants to wrinkle, we can still open a little bit and correct it. We can use a heat gun. So there are a bunch of options, but let's get us to the best possible state so we have less work to do later. I think I'm spinning in circles at this point, so I'll just leave that to dry and I will recheck it later. But yeah, that's the rear bumper. To be honest, I think this is the most difficult piece of the install. The front bumper, at least in my experience, is a little bit easier. So now that we've cleared that, I feel much better about my progress here so far. All right, next up, that's the passenger side rear quarter panel or rear fender. Make sure to clean it really thoroughly. Open the doors, clean the rocker area as well. This is a very dirty part of the car. I already did that, and let me show you how to transfer this. This is a bit large. So I'm going to fold the film like this and make sure you spray thoroughly, otherwise you're in for a surprise. All right, now I'll pull the sheet. All right, I want to start by positioning the film on top. We'll squeegee a little bit, maybe with my hands, I'll see. But I'll be holding this, and then I will, you know, lay this and squeegee as I go so it doesn't drop to the ground. All right, so let's position it here. And I have my squeegee handy. I will squeegee a little bit just so that the film doesn't move too much. And then we'll start unfolding here. You may need to crack this door open a little bit. And again, this is the kind of piece that is much easier to transfer if you have a helper who can just hold this for you. I'll align here in the end and squeegee, and then I'll start going back. All right, I think this is stable enough. I don't want to squeegee this now, but it's stable enough for now. We'll reopen it later, but now let's focus on that part. All right, my alignment begins here, and if you need to move the film, open it, you may need to respray. Notice these two shapes, they kind of show you the two borders of this. I'll give it some soapy water because I need the film to slide more easily. And make sure you go slightly under this window trim so you don't have any exposed paint. And here you will want to go under this. It's easier on the driver's side where this opens to the charge port, although we can do that part a little bit later as well. Let's get the initial alignment. I'll give it some clean water here to make the film stick better. And try to get that pressure to a minimum. Also here. You may want to spray a little bit of water here to get this to stick a little bit better. And notice I'm just pulling on the two sides like this to release the pressure that's building up on this curve. Be mindful of your positioning here. And same principle here. Now make sure that you position this in this area in a way that it will wrap around the edges here. And now we'll just squeegee this throughout the entire length. You may want to add a little water here to prevent the film from pulling when you pull there. And then your alignment here is actually on the bottom. Very difficult to show you, but there is a plastic trim, black plastic trim that you will see. Make sure to squeegee this well so you don't end up with any water there. And what I'm trying to do is to just guide it forward without overlapping the plastic trim on the bottom, and also without leaving any paint exposed. Make sure you have enough here on top to fold. I'm here anyway, I might as well fix some things on the bottom of the door that I see. All right, okay, I think I got this. Again, go through it again, remove any water that you see, and just let it be, let it dry. This will be easily fixed when it dries up. We can get some of these down. They shouldn't be too hard to handle later when it dries up. And the other important thing is, now notice that we're overlapping here. So for that reason, when the time comes to finish this, I will lift one of these up to finish the other, and then I'll first finish the bumper, and then I'll finish this. So I'll have to lift up the edge just a little bit. All right, last but not least from this sheet, let's wrap this cap. These are the cutouts. At this point there is so much water here, I'll just dip this, I don't need to spray, and I will put this on top. I'll try to center it, squeegee it, make sure that it's centered, and I'll just leave it like that in my trunk so I don't lose it. And when it dries up, we'll use a heat gun to fold the edges. It's as simple as that. With that said, I'm done with this sheet. I'll still keep it because I might need more of the mirror cutouts in case when I start fixing those after they dry up it doesn't work out. But I'll get it out of the way for now. And let's open up the last fourth sheet. This one is very similar to the third sheet, but it would be the front bumper instead of the rear one. So again, we have the rear fender, but for the driver's side, we have the front bumper, the elliptical cap cutout if you're gonna be wrapping the cap separately, the front driver door. These are for the mirror too, if you're gonna be bulk wrapping the mirror, and the mirrors, multiple cutouts for those, and in the end, wraps for the door handles, multiples, so you can make mistakes. And yeah, let's get to that one. Before I continue installing the fourth sheet, I want to check the stuff that I already installed and see if I can do some fixing and basically get it into a better state. So I'll start with the passenger side mirror. It's been a few hours since I installed this, so it's generally dry. It might need more, but let's see what can we get done. You see, if I have too much pressure somewhere, I peel off a little bit, try to spread it into a bigger area, and now I'll just try to clear the edges as much as I can. Now I'll peel this off to finish this piece, the smaller piece, and then I'll put the larger piece on top of it. I might need a little heat gun here. I'll use my plastic squeegee, try to tuck this under. Now this is the tricky part. So the way you want to do this one is that you want to clear one edge at a time. So first I'll try to clear this edge, and then I'll try to clear the bottom edge. I overstretched it a bit here, so I'll trim it off a little bit later, and I'll come to finish it then. Let me check the other pieces, and this one will require a little bit more touch-ups, but I'll do them a little bit later. So here is the door handle that I showed you how to wrap. Now now that this is dry, I'll just fold it like this, and if it refuses, use the heat gun, but generally it might just work out without one. I still need to fix that. All of these small fixes, I tend to do them at the end of the installation. I don't want to be very delayed by them, so I will generally fix whatever I can during the installation, and all the touch-ups will be done separately when everything is placed and dry. I will obviously show the touch-ups as well. Here will be for during the touch-up phase, or maybe I'll just reinstall this. We'll see what happens during touch-up. I might just trim it a little bit. I seem to have positioned the door handle a little bit further to the back than I should have, and now I have a little bit more material than I would like to. So I'll leave this for later, but this is the principle of wrapping the door handles. Again, during touch-ups, I'll come to that. During touch-ups, I'll be using actually a little bit of super glue to fix anything that refuses to stay. Because, as I said multiple times throughout this installation, this is a curvy car. There are things that don't want to stay where you want them to stay. So for these, we will use just a little bit of super glue, and I'll show you how that works later. I can feel that this is still plenty wet, so I don't expect to be able to finish this right now, but you know, let's just make it a little bit better as far as it will allow us, and we'll come back to it later. I'm might be able to fold this edge. Notice I'm using the edge tool and I'm pushing in and up to tuck this in there. I should also be able to do the bottom edge at this point, which is pretty trivial, nothing really special about this. Alternatively, one thing you can do, by the way, if you don't want to deal with bottom edges, is to just slice them off. Nobody's gonna see these bottom edges anyway. And then this is the trickier edge because it's just hard to squeeze your fingers in there. You can open the door like this and just do it in segments. You can also access the door from the inside and do it from the inside. Yeah, I would say that from the inside it's a little bit easier in some sections of the door. Alright, this door is just about done. I'll just peel this off. As I said previously, we don't want this edge right now because it overlaps the other one, so we need to fix them one by one. We can maybe do this folding. Yep, that works now. Now before I can fold this, I need to unstick it from this reflector. This is much easier on the other side, by the way, because the charge port opens. We have to clear this corner. I'm almost there. If you're struggling too much with this corner, you can introduce a small slice like here on the PPF. This would make it easier, but you might get with tiny bit of paint exposed. That's why I prefer not to do it if possible. There you go. So we can finish this part, and this we'll do later. Now let's do this part. I'll start with this corner because this is where all the pressure wants to be. Make sure to draw the corner like this with your finger. Make sure you're not leaving any air in here. And for the rest of the rocker area, check for bubbles. I see some here on mine. Get them out and fold. This should also be easy. All right. Let's try to finish this. The first thing I want to do is to lift this one up, and then using the edge tool I will push the bumper inside. Alternatively, if you want this to be easier, you can consider installing these pieces after this is completely done. I need to open up this as well a little bit because it's sticking on the quarter panel and it's harder to tuck it in this way. And here it still needs to dry. It's not sticking too well. So I'm just gonna leave that and move to places that are dry. I got a little bit of excess here. You can either try to tuck it in, or if that fails, you can trim it. But overall, it's not that difficult to tuck it in. Now I think it's time we open this up. So first, throw it with your fingers to see where it is exactly. And then make a slice. Let's do a cross like this and remove each part individually. And don't be tempted to take too much out of the material right now. You can always take out more, but it's more difficult to put it back. So let's start small like this, then try to wrap it. Might benefit a heat gun here. All right, I'll remove some more. Let's see if the cap is ready. The cap is pretty much ready. I'll just wrap this. Okay, let me see if I can insert this back at this point. Oh, that's a bugger that detached. I guess if you use this cap, this will break within the first couple of times you use it anyway. Okay, so I picked up a little bit of PPF here. I'll tuck it back in, and you can glue this. If you'll be using this frequently, you can glue the PPF so it doesn't get picked up. I mean, obviously you can do much more work here to make this a smoother fit. I'm just gonna show you the way to do it, then how much time you put into it would determine how good the result is. All right, so this is the way we do it with the cap. Now let me move on to wrapping this. Okay, this is a bit way off, which is, you know, a very likely thing to happen with this particular piece. So we'll have to do a little bit of trimming later. I'm just gonna use heat gun on this. Oh, this is still wet though. I didn't realize. Oh, this is very wet. Okay, so it's too early for that piece. Let's just leave it to dry. You can see the water spraying out. Okay, this is still very wet. I'm gonna come back to this later. I'll just go finish the other side now and move on. All right, so I only have the bumper and the bumper lip left, and I'll do the bumper. I need to be completely done with the bumper, with the folding, with the fixing, everything, before I can do the bumper lip. So the bumper lip is gonna be for tomorrow, but today, this is day 2. Let's put that bumper on. All right, now that the bumper is here and somewhat stable, here is what we'll do. I'll peel off one side, and I want to align this part here. So if that part doesn't reach, peel off the opposite side as well, and just give it some space. I'll use clean water here, and I will align this. And by the way, for this step, you also need to pop the frunk open. So let's do that, and let's squeeze. Make sure that you have enough to cover the edges, to wrap around those edges. Now I'll spray soapy water because I need to be able to position this freely at the moment. And now I need to make this stick in a few places so I can stretch on the opposite side, just like I did with the rear bumper. And I'll keep realigning this. Let's see, if I stretch now, it moves. In that case, maybe I need to anchor it here a little bit better. Let's see, maybe some more over here. All right, I'll slowly start stretching now and see what happens. So we need this stretch to clear this curve. Let's use some clean water. Now be mindful of your vertical alignment. The fume will wrap all the way to the black plastic trim on the bottom, so check it out. Should be around there. Maybe I need to let loose a little bit. And that entire time I'm aligning here. The film is starting to dry up, so I'll spray a little bit of water. Now I want to align it here. You want the PPF to go under the headlights like this. Now pull down. I'll use a little bit of clean water. Okay, now that I've cleared it all the way to here, I'll leave that for later when the film is dry. Now I'll do the same on the other side. So I took about 4 hours break, and now I'll recheck everything that I did today so far and see what is dry, what is not, what I can fix. I'll start with this. This should be pretty simple. You'll need your plastic squeegee. If it wrinkles somewhere, just pick it up and smooth it out. This part is pretty easy, as I said. Just wrap around like this. Now I'll try to wrap this on the bottom. Let me finish this. This is also pretty easy. I'll lift this up a little bit to handle this pressure, to distribute it. There is a little bit of excess here that I can't tuck in because it's really tight. So I'll just slice it off. It's like less than a millimeter. Alright. For this I'm gonna need my heat gun. I'll work a little bit on that and then I'll grab my heat gun. Alright, let's see. So first off, I see a small bubble here. I can either open the film, I'll probably open it, but alternatively, maybe I didn't speak about this before. If you have a bubble that's far from an edge, you can just use the utility knife and slice it, and it's gone. This, you can't tell it was ever there. Now let's see, how do we get all of this pressure out? I will pull that way. Let's see if that will get me anywhere. Alright, so far so good. And now I'll pull the opposite way, that way. By the way, notice I'm pressing really hard with the squeegee. That's the plastic one, to make sure that when I'm reapplying the PPF, which is dry at this point, if you know PPF is installed wet, I don't get any bubbles. Alright, so I've reached the edge and I have some of the PPF sticking out of the edge. There is no edge wrapping here unless you take apart this bottom trim. So what I'll do instead is that I'll just cut it off. And there is a very easy to follow separation line between the bumper and that bottom plastic trim. In my case, that's my wife's car, she must have hit something, so this plastic trim is a little bit broken and it's all scratched up here, and the PPF is not sticking, so I'll probably use super glue on that. But before that, I'll hit this with a heat gun. Now let's try to fix this. I see a wrinkle here which I must have missed, so I'll open up. I can still feel moisture here, so I'm a bit skeptical that I can edge wrap this right now, but I'll still try and see what happens. So I'm first clearing that part of the edge, the outer part, and then I'll try to clear the inner part. Okay, I stretched too much here, so I have stuff that I need to cut off. Notice that you can pull the bumper towards you to tuck the edges in. Let's see if I can finish the rear bumper now. So you will want to go under this plastic trim if you stretch this too much, or alternatively you can just trim. Relatively easy to go under this plastic trim, but as I said, alternatively you can just cut it off. Let me see if I can get this edge to go in there. Okay, nice. So this part is really easy. Previously it wasn't dry enough. Right now it appears to be dry enough. Make sure to get the air out, and we'll repeat the same on this side. So this just pops right off, so I think it's really easy to wrap around there. But again, if you don't want to pop anything off, just trim it, assuming that you position the PPF a little bit higher than intended. There you go. Alright, let's finish this part of the rear bumper. So again, the first thing I want to do here is to clear everything up to the first edge. So I'm pulling the PPF this way so that that stretch can remove some of the pressure. I have a little bit of extra here from all the pulling that I'll just cut off. And please be careful when pulling the film after you use this heat gun, because when the film is warm, it's very easy to rip it off. So I'm using the heat gun here because there's so much pressure, it's the only way, but I'm pulling very gently when the film is warm. You'll notice that it becomes extremely stretchable. But yeah, basically that's the approach. You pull, you stretch, you try to move that pressure to spread it out so that you don't get wrinkles. Now there is still plenty of pressure here, so I would advise you that you re-inspect this a few hours or the day after. And if you're getting wrinkles or anything is lifting up, first you can try with the heat gun again. Sometimes it works. If that doesn't work though, you can either trim off a little bit more, but then you risk showing the paint, or you can use a little bit of super glue on the PPF and that would make it stick. Have in mind though that if you're using super glue, you should generally be careful about applying super glue to places that will be in contact with the car paint, because should you want to remove that wrap, chances are the super glue might damage your paint. So I generally avoid doing that, and I use super glue when I want to stick the PPF onto itself. But also honestly, this is just a difficult place, very difficult place to wrap. I would say this is one of the trickiest parts of the installation. So if you end up with a few small wrinkles, it's in a place that's not really visible that much unless you know to look there. So you can forgive yourself that and just leave them if they're causing you too much trouble removing them. Okay, so I have a few small wrinkles left here. I'll come back later. I'll give it some time for the film to take its new shape. I'll come back later. I can try to lift up a little bit, use the heat gun again, and try to lay it down again. If that doesn't work, and these really bother you, if you get similar wrinkles like me, a few options. One is super glue, but again, be mindful that if you remove the wrap, it might peel off the paint too, although this is in a highly invisible place. The other option is to use a PPF primer on the paint. And I would say a third option would be to trim off this area and then use some of the leftover PPF, because we'll send you a lot of PPF, and just cut a piece to this shape and put it here. If you put them right next to each other, it would look almost seamless. So I'm just giving you ideas how you can handle this, because very realistically you will also end up with some wrinkles here, and while they're fixable, you can work more on this, you can stretch more, you can use primer and whatnot. I don't know how many of you would actually want to go through the trouble of fixing them, because that alone could take some time to fix. For now, as I said, I'll leave these like that. Maybe let me just try to lift up one more time and see if that would help. So here's what I'm doing. I'm just lifting up everything that I just installed, but just a little bit, just where the wrinkles are. And now I'll warm it up, and I'll try to reposition. Well, that actually seems to be doing pretty good job. All right, that actually did pretty good. I had a lot more wrinkles before that, and now it's just a few. And if I do this a few more times, I'll probably be able to get it to 0. All right, this is much better than before. I will revisit a little bit later, see if there is more I can do. By the way, notice that this is not sticking. The reason is that the back side of this has no paint, so this cannot stick on whatever the surface is of the back side. So I'll just trim this off. And now if you took the approach where you decide, okay, I'll just, there's so many wrinkles, I'll just slice it off. You can even use a piece that you trimmed off to put it over, and it would make it a lot less visible. I'm just demonstrating. But yeah, you cannot even tell that unless you're actively looking here. You can't really tell that there is another piece. All right, let's move on. Now I wanted to show you something else. Imagine that you end up with something like this, and despite your best efforts, you cannot get rid of these wrinkles. This is a very real possibility with the rear bumper. As I said, this is a difficult piece to install. You get a lot of pressure, especially in this area. So on the passenger side, I did it nicely. On this side, I messed it up. It's a real possibility. So if you just give up and you don't want to be applying glue because you don't want to damage the paint and nothing else is working, one approach is to slice off the part of the PPF that looks bad and replace it with new PPF. So let me try to do this. And I have some issues here. Slice it off. All right. Now you have plenty of leftover PPF. At the very least, we provide you with large pieces for the mirror wrap too. So I'll just take some of that. Here is a piece I cut by hand, and let's see, how do I want to apply this? All right, let's start trimming off, and we'll do the trimming in parts too. Like, I'll not try to get the trimming perfect from the first time. It's too difficult. All right. And now, all that I need to do is to trim the new piece around here, I imagine. All right, we're almost there. Now I just need to trim. Oh, actually, this one can fold around, and I'll just trim around that plastic piece on the bottom of the car. There you go. So, is that perfect and better than just being able to wrap it properly the first time? No, it's not perfect and it's not better. But does it work? Yes, it works. So if you're a DIYer and you end up in a situation like that, there is no need to panic. You have plenty of leftover PPF that you can use for places that you couldn't do as well as you would like. And can you tell that this is a patched piece? Sure, if I look it from here, I can tell. If I stand up, no way, no way. So I would say that for a DIYer, that's a perfectly valid approach to have a clean looking edge in the trickier places like the rear bumper. Now it's time for the lip as the final piece. But before I start the lip, I wanted to show you something. Notice how this fits on this side, and notice how it fits on that side. It's slightly different. The reason is all the stretching, but this is a very likely scenario. It can happen to you as well. So if that happens to you, what you want to do, and this is what I'll do, is that you want to overlap a little bit. Alternatively, if you can't, you can use a scrap piece to just overlay it and hide the gap. All right, let's get on to it. Now, for the lip, I will use clean water, not soapy water, and I'll show you why you need clean water. All right, let's position it. Notice that it will be really sticky this way. Actually, let me align on the side that you'll be seeing. And as I said, because of this, how this came after all the stretching, I have a little bit of gap that I shouldn't have. So I'll just push it a little bit further this way and I'll stretch it. I'll see how to fix that. But basically, I'm putting the lip here and I'll squeegee a little bit. And notice that the lip cutout is made shorter on purpose, about 2 inches shorter. The reason is that you really have to stretch it, and that's the reason we're using clean water. Because if we were using soapy water, I would pull here and it would move there, and I don't want that. And the reason for that stretch is this humongous curve that we make here. Without that stretching, there is no way you can handle this curve. So let me take this water out. Again, when using clean water, it's trickier to not have bubbles, so be extra careful with that. Okay, now I'll return. I want maximum material for stretching without risking this detaching on this side. And I'll keep it a little bit in the air so that I can stretch it. I'll pull on this side to keep it somewhat centered there, and I'll position on the other side. And notice how I control the fitment here. If I let it go, it goes in. If I pull towards me, it comes off. So this is how I'm controlling the fitment. I hope this is visible on the video. And when I'm ready, just do like this and it stays. And now that I have it aligned on this side as well, I'll squeegee, try to make it stay there. Now let's work on removing that water here. And obviously at this point of the installation, it looks weird towards the end. We'll be able to correct that with some more stretching and maybe trimming after this dries up. So for the time being, I just want to do the best I can to remove any leftover water and let it dry. All right, at this point, I think I'm ready with this. I'll let it dry. I'll come back in a few hours. That obviously depends on ambient temperatures. It's hot here, so probably in a few hours it will be ready to continue. But basically, you just wait until this is completely dry before you continue with the installation of the lip. I mentioned multiple times throughout the video that there might be places where you have problems with adhesion. Those would be the most aggressive curves, or just places where the paint is chipped or whatever, for whatever reason. So I'll show you one way to handle this. Obviously, the trimming approach always works, but sometimes you may not want to trim because it will show the paint, like here, for example. So this is the door handle, and you know the PPF is just not sticking here and here. So I'll show you the super glue approach. It's very simple. This is just some super glue that I have. You can use any super glue, I think. And the way I would do it is that I would put tiny amount onto something else, like this. And then I will use that tool to transfer the glue onto the PPF. Like this. And then press and hold. And I bet you this is not lifting up anymore. Now I'll do the same here. Just press and hold for a few seconds. And voila. So this is the super glue approach. It's super simple. Just always keep in mind this. If you are doing super glue against paint, chances are if you are removing this wrap ever, it might chip off the paint. So, you know, there is this risk. I generally prefer to do super glue either in places where you won't even see it if it chips off a little bit, or when it's PPF over PPF. That sometimes happens over trickier corners where you have PPF bulking up, so you can obviously trim it, or you can just stick it one on top of the other. Just put a little bit of super glue and one will stick on top of the other. But yeah, this is also a valid approach to fix some tiny things during the final touch-ups. Alright, it has been a few hours since I installed this, so I hope it's dry by now. I will try to finish it. Now, the first thing you want to do is peel this edge off and make sure that this piece is fully laid down. Like the edge here is properly sticking and it's not picking up, and it just looks perfect. So first make sure that this piece looks perfect. Then I will start by fixing a little bit here in this area, and then I will do this. Now if you get to a place where the wrinkles are a bit harder to tackle, just use a heat gun. There you go, this edge looks perfect. Now let's see what can we get here. So here I have a little bit more pressure, nothing to worry about. Let me wait for this to cool down. I don't want to rip it. And I'll just peel off a little bit and try to spread this pressure to more surface area. Now just tuck it in. If you have too much, let's say you stretched too much, you can just trim it off with your utility knife. Like I have just a little bit too much here, which I'll remove with my knife. All right, now let's do the top. Let me again mention that this is intentionally much longer than the mirror. And the reason is that you will get a lot of pressure here. And we want that pressure to have where to go so that you can wrap around without that many wrinkles. So I will start wrapping around at this area where the most pressure is, so that I have the chance to dissipate the pressure towards the two areas where there is less pressure. The first thing I'll do though is to clear the top edge like this. I don't want to start stretching and wrapping around only to find the wrinkle here. So let me switch the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm essentially heating it up and pulling gently and stretching down and in so that I can wrap around. The other benefit of having this much extra is that when I'm touching this to stretch it, I'm slowly destroying the adhesive by introducing dirt and whatnot from my fingers. This way, this part will be trimmed off anyway, and the part that we do need to stick stays clean. Now I just want to wrap around this edge and then I'll trim it. And just like that, I have a wrapped mirror. I did get a few small wrinkles here that I can try to fix later if I feel like it. I think I can live with them. Let's see, they bug me. I'll fix them later. The way you would be able to fix this is to gently peel off like this, then heat gun this, and then make sure the PPF is not sticking on itself, like here. Okay, I got a few out, a few more remaining, but basically you peel off and you reapply it. Just make sure the film is not sticking onto itself. And lastly, here I have a little bit to trim off. And notice that I'm cutting here against bottom edge of this plastic part of the mirror so that there is no risk of scratching the paint. All right, I think this is the very last thing left to do before we call this a wrap. So let me show you how to do it. So the last thing I did was to apply this to remove the water throughout the land. But as I told you, if you have some paint showing on the edges, you can either try to stretch it or patch it with a piece. We'll provide patching pieces. I will try to stretch here and see what happens. First, I see that this is picking up, so I'll just put it back down. Now I'll just peel off a little bit and see what is it that we can do here. Again, for my installation, this would be the trickier part because this part didn't align just right. The other aligned much better. All right, I'll stretch a little bit more. I don't like working on the very edge, so for that I need to pull a little bit more. Now, before I proceed any further with this part, I just wanted to make sure that I can reach the edge. I'll actually start folding on the bottom. So the first thing I'll do is to examine the line that's directly in front of me. Check for any bubbles. If you see any, lift up and remove them. Now, the way I would start wrapping this is from the middle. I'll use my squeegee and just push the middle, make the middle stick, and then I will pull the next part this way. And when I'm done with this side, I'll do the same thing on the other side, pulling that way. So the thinking here is that there is so much pressure, because that's a huge curve, that you need to stretch the film. But where do we stretch it? We stretch it to each side separately. All right, I'm almost near the end. So I'm pulling towards the back of the car and this side. And by the way, I'm not getting everything wrinkle free. So to remove the wrinkles, I'm getting about like 3 inches of wrinkle free, and then the end still gets some wrinkles here and there. So to get those wrinkles, I'll have to then repeat the whole thing and remove them little by little. Or alternatively, I can trim it off there, because no one's ever gonna see that part of the car, and I can apply a patch if I want to save some time. If I want it to be perfect though, I'll just need to go over it again and again until these wrinkles dissipate. And we also need the heat gun. Now let's see, what do we do with this? Okay, so that part would be unnecessary given the lemon that I got here. So just slice it off. Let's warm this up, make it more cooperative. And I have a little bit of extra here that I will just slice off along the edges. Just fixing a small wrinkle that developed here. All done. All right, and this side is done. Now I will work on reducing the wrinkles here on the bottom. And just like in the mirrors, the way you had a little bit of extra so you can pull, we have that here as well. So in the end, I'll have to just trim this on the bottom to remove that extra. But I'll trim it after I'm done with both sides. All right, this side is done. Now, absolutely the same on the other side. So here, as I told you, my bumper aligned the way it's intended to. So this just fits properly. There is no more work there. So I'll just do the bottom. And now I'll reduce the wrinkles there. All right, there you go. Again, this is a tricky one, especially on the bottom. Luckily, I'm talking about the very far bottom. So if that bugs you and you're getting more wrinkles than you're willing to handle, just trim off and patch it, and you're good to go. Let me show you what it looks like. Alright guys, the wrap is done, and there is one last thing I want to do before I take the car outside to show you what it looks like. And this is go to settings, software, and now let's set our wrap cover. Maybe something like this. And now we're done. All right, and this is the end result. Let me show you what it looks like up close. All right, I'm done. It was 3 days for me from beginning to completion, and I would say this was a relatively hard wrap to do. It's not a Cybertruck with flat panels. There is stretching, there is multiple readjustments, trimming, gluing here and there. So I'm saying this just to give you a realistic perspective of what to expect if you're planning on doing this yourself. I totally think that anyone who is handy can do it, but you need to be patient and you need to give it the time it needs. And ultimately, the end result would depend on you. I mean, our template is here. It works, the PPF is great, but how much time you put into this would determine how good it looks in the end. A few more notes in closing. First off, if you're watching this video and something isn't clear, please do let us know. Just email us at hello@twraps.com and we'll get back to you. The other thing is, I want to emphasize this again because I get asked this a lot. First, this template that I'm using is a template that I made from scratch. If you are using some other company's wrap, this video is probably not gonna do it for you. I don't know what other companies' wraps look like. As far as I know, pretty much everyone uses just a generic wrap that barely works. That's why I put so much time into this one to make it easy to install by yourself, as easy as possible. But what I'm saying is that if you're using this video, use this wrap. Otherwise, you're probably wasting your time. Again, this is a paint protection film. This is not vinyl, so it requires wet installation, which I think is a little bit easier in some regards, a little bit harder in others. The other thing I wanted to mention is choosing colors. There are a few things to know there. First off, assuming that you're doing this yourself and you're not having a shop do it, chances are you will make mistakes. Chances are there will be paint exposed here or there. And at some point you might become lazy or just tired and say, you know, I'll just leave it like that. And if you choose a color that's closer to the original color of your Model 3, then mistakes like that would be less visible. For example, if I chose, let's say, gloss black for this previously white car, any small mistake that I do would be completely unforgivable. Like, it would be an eyesore. So just something to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that the more forgiving colors, in my experience, are generally the satin and matte colors, metallic, color changing, lighter colors. So that's a lot of information there, but satin and matte is easier to install than glossy. At least that's my feeling, having installed a bunch of Cybertruck wraps. Metallic color changing wraps are more forgiving for dirt. Like if you have a little speck of dirt and you have a flat color glossy wrap, for example, it's really visible. And if you have a color changing wrap or a metallic wrap or a metallic color changing wrap, these tiny imperfections are just a little bit less visible. And generally lighter colors are more forgiving in terms of defects than darker colors. So if you go with a darker color, again, smaller defects will be a little bit more visible. The material itself is the same, just the coatings on it are different. But I'm talking about the visual perception of how good the installation quality is versus how good it actually is. So if you want to go easy on yourself and you like one of our satin wraps that are metallic or color changing, that would be your easiest installation possible. In the other hand, if you want to go with glossy and dark color, totally up to you, but I recommend you do that only if your Model 3 is in darker color, like the gray or the black. Otherwise, again, it will be very unforgivable to mistakes. You'll have to spend probably a couple more days just doing touch-ups here and there to make sure that no corners are showing or anything. And the last thing on my mind that I wanted to mention is this. It's now the 4th day since I began. I haven't installed anything today. I finished last night. And today I'll take the car outside, I'll leave it on the driveway to help the film cure faster. During that curing process, first, you should realistically expect that edges here and there will lift up. It's inevitable, it happens to shops as well. That's one of the reasons shops usually keep cars for unreasonably long time, as most people perceive it. It's actually to fix these kinds of things that show up a few days later. So be on the lookout. I would say take it out in the sun if it's sunny, let the wrap cure, and re-inspect it every day for the next couple of days. And if you see anything lifting up, fix it. I showed you a bunch of ways to fix issues. I hope that's enough. Again, if you're facing an issue that I didn't cover, I apologize that I didn't cover it, but please do reach out
and I or my colleagues will be able to help. And the other thing is, please do avoid car washes for, let's say, a week, and before the first car wash, re-inspect that everything's looking good. Because if you missed something, let's say I missed an edge picking up here, and I go, you know, especially automated car wash, that jet water will get in under the PPF and lift it up, and it will ruin it. We can obviously send you replacements. If you email us, we can send you replacements. There will be additional cost to that, of course, but it will be a severely reduced price, just so you know we can get you up and running. But it's still unnecessary hassle. So just re-inspect the car before the first car wash. And with that said, if you have any other questions for us, just shoot us an email. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you do this properly by yourself and you're happy with your wrap. Thanks for watching.